For those of you who are watching the presentation online and trying to follow it, this presentation we're delivering here is a cut-down version of what's on the ASX website, just in the interests of time. And I'll touch on some of the things that we've removed from the presentation as we go through anyway. First of all, I'll be making some forward-looking statements, so please take note of the disclaimers. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're speaking today, and also on which we work up in the Pilbara. We've got several groups through which we've got exploration agreements with, and they've been really good relationships over the years that we've been exploring up there. And in regards to the Hemi project, we've had a mining agreement in place with the Gariara people for approximately the last 2 years, and that relationship and that agreement has allowed us to have a mining lease granted over Hemi back last year, and that relationship's going really well through implementation meetings that we've been having, and hopefully that'll continue into the future. Just in terms of where we're at, we're up in the Pilbara. It's fair to say that the discovery of Hemi has completely reversed people's thinking about gold up there. You've got a world-class deposit in an area where people just didn't think you'd find these things, and that's a testament to the early exploration team that we had through Phil, Alan and Andy, and the team that was there associated with them. The other thing that's great about that part of the world and a really big de-risker for us is the amount of infrastructure that we've got around us. I won't talk about it in too much detail here, but we've got everything that we need on our doorstep in terms of roads, power, water, communications, port facility and so forth. And that's a really de-risker for the project and for De Grey as a corporate entity. So I just wanted to talk to what we've been doing for the last 12 months since last we spoke, and it's a really good way to introduce the presentation. And I'm going to spend a bit of time on this slide because there's quite a bit to draw out of it. We don't often look backwards, and everyone in the room would know when you're putting a project together, there's always the next thing to do. So you don't really do a lot of reflection. And putting this together, we're looking back to September last year and what we've done between now and then, and there's quite a lot that we've achieved. I mentioned the grant of the Hemi mining lease, and that came out of a lot of work over several years in terms of relationships with the Gariara people and local communities. We put out a DFS in September last year, which was really positively received, and we undertook a contemporaneous raising of $300 million. That was to put us into a position where we could get on with pre-production activities while we were continuing with other milestones that we had to achieve to get into development. One of those things was to commence the ordering of long lead time items, and I'll get into a bit more detail on that. We also received levels of assessment for the environmental approvals that we put in June, July 2023. And so those environmental levels of assessment were what we expected, so that was quite encouraging. In November last year, we increased the Hemi resource by 1 million ounces in approximately 6 months since the previous resource estimate, and that allowed that Hemi resource to go to 10.5 million ounces. In terms of building up the project team, we appointed Ivan Mullaney to the position of project committee chair, and I'll talk to Ivan's experience in a little while. And then I think I've gone reverse here on the racetrack, but in May this year we also undertook a $600 million capital raising, and that was really important for us for a couple of reasons. One was it gave us a cash balance of around $900 million, but it also gave a lot of people that we're working with on the project a lot of confidence in the company's ability to take this project forward from a balance sheet perspective. So that includes the senior debt providers that we're working with. It includes the contractors that we'll be going out to with major tenders this quarter, and so it goes. So getting that capital raising in place was really important for us. We did that capital raising with a couple of groups who've been working with us for, I think, the last 3 raisings. That's Argonaut and Canaccord. It was the biggest raising we did, and it was the raising that was the smoothest and really the best executed of all of them. So that's put us in a great position. And then also at the same time, we managed to get those credit approved terms from a syndicate of banks at the end of June. And having that equity in place was really important for those banks in terms of their own risk. And it was at that point in time that I realised, that milestone, I'm not sure we celebrated that enough internally, but that was a really big milestone for the company, and it was a whole of company effort. We knew 3 to 4 years ago that we were going to be in a position where we would be subject to a syndicate of banks undertaking due diligence on this project, and we had to make sure that all the studies that we'd done over that period of time were going to be to such a level of quality that those banks would be comfortable lending us, $1 billion in senior debt, plus an overrun facility to a single asset company being De Grey. And so that was, the culmination of 3 or 4 years of work from everybody across the organisation. We announced some extensions over the last few months at Eagle and also latterly at Crow and Aquila. I'll talk to that in a little while, particularly in relation to the underground potential at Hemi. We also released a scoping study into the regional deposits. Again, I'll talk about that in a little while. And we recently appointed General Manager of Operations. So we've been setting ourselves up really nicely over the last 12 months. It's been a hell of a period. But I thought it was worth going through because it does draw out quite a few things about the project. Just in terms of why we're doing it and Hemi, these are some of the highlights from the DFS. This DFS was done at a gold price of $2,700 per ounce Australian. If you look at the NPV there, post-tax of $2.9 billion, at today's gold price, that NPV is basically double. It's about $5.7 billion in terms of NPV. So that's amazing in terms of the leverage that we have, even though we're already proposing to be a low-cost producer. Another real key de-risker for us is the payback period under 2 years. That's driven physically by the Brolga starter pit, which has about 1.3 million ounces of gold production in it, strip ratio of around 2.4 to 1, operating cost of between 850 and 900 Aussie per ounce. That generates about $2.2 billion at the DFS gold price, and at the current gold price, that would be $3.3 billion just from that one pit, and that's where we would start mining, and that's what leads to the payback period of under 2 years. So just in terms of where we're at the moment, I mentioned environmental submissions. So we received our levels of assessment. Part of that was that we were asked to provide some additional information, and we've been working in the last 6 months to get that together. And this quarter, we'll start putting submissions back into the Federal Department of Environment and the State EPA. And at that time, we'll have a re-engagement with those groups in terms of timeframes going forward for the receipt of primary approvals. In the meantime, we've been doing ongoing ordering of long lead items. I think this quarter we'll have ordered all the major items of equipment in the plant. That is a significant de-risking for us as well, particularly around capital costs. We've been continuing with front-end engineering, and it's that level of front-end engineering and design work that will allow us to go out with some detailed tenders on the plant construction contract this quarter, and also some more detailed work on the mining engineering that will allow us to go out with tenders on the mining contract this quarter as well. So just in terms of the project committee, I mentioned Ivan Mullaney. He's come on as project chair in March this year. He would be well known to people in this room, and in particular to people in North America and our North American investors. So he's had a lot of senior level experience with large gold corporations over there, a lot of project development and operations experience, including pressure oxidation. Peter Holmes is our project director. He's been with us since February last year, so I was there for the end of the DFS. Peter has worked with Barrick as their construction director for a long period of time. I think he's been responsible for building something like $9 billion worth of projects, including the Pueblo Viejo project in Dominican Republic, which is one of the largest pressure oxidation plants in the world. There's my fine self on that committee, and then Jeff Fenton, who's the gentleman we just recently employed as General Manager Operations. He's had a lot of large-scale project development experience in the Pilbara. Jeff's come on early, and he's going to help us with our operational readiness. One of the slides, or a couple of the slides that aren't in this presentation, is of the board and the senior management team. We've been transitioning our board over the last couple of years to put it in a position where the market's confident that we're going to be able to deliver this project, and similarly with the executive team. And that information will be on the presentation on the website. Just in terms of the project team, I won't go into this in too much detail, but we've been filling out the positions in there. Because of the quality of this project, we've been able to attract some really high quality people into those roles, and we've also got really high quality people working for us as consultants around all sorts of areas, but particularly in the pressure oxidation area. Just going back to that, actually that's a 3D image of the process plant as it'll be. One of the things we've been doing, or a few things we've been doing over the last few months since the DFS, is just nailing down everything around process flow diagrams, P&IDs. The layout of the plant has now been finalised. I think we'll have a level of engineering at the moment of around about 30% to be able to go into those tenders this quarter. Okay, just that's the Hemi DFS and some of the metrics and where we're at now, but I think it's worth going through our resource growth over the last few years to talk to what we see going ahead for Hemi and also for our Pilbara project up there. This is where we started in April 2020. That was the maiden MRE, added a bit to that in June 21. Another 1.6 million ounces in May 22. Another just under 1 million ounces 12 months later, and then another 1 million ounces from June to November 23, and we'll be putting out another resource estimate in November this year. So we're not really putting that slide up to say how great are we. It's more about we've got a fantastic provincial scale opportunity here, and Hemi and the regional exploration package is going to deliver more resources going forward. One of the things that we're doing with this exploration and resource extension is we want to be able to translate that into increased production profile. So this is the scoping study profile. It was 4.3 million ounces over 10 years, and the dashed line there is how much measured and indicated resources we have in that production profile. So that's where we started back in 2021. And then we put out a PFS. Production went up to 6.4 million ounces. The level of confidence in the resources went up in that production profile, and that included about 1.1 million ounces of regional resources in that production profile. Going through to the DFS, which we put out in September last year, that was looking at 5.7 million ounces of production, but it was all from Hemi, and the level of reserves in that production profile was 99%. And we made an explicit effort going from the PFS to the DFS to simplify the project for the debt providers, so that all the production going forward was coming from Hemi, that they would be funding, and that we would have a really high level of confidence in that production, and that's why we targeted that 99% of reserves. So going forward, that resource update we did in November last year, we did a redesign of the Eagle pit, and we added another around 700,000 ounces to the DFS production profile, taking the production from open pits there from 5.7 to 6.4 million ounces. We recently released the regional scoping study. There's about 85% measured and indicated resources in that production profile. We added an average of around 140,000 ounces a year over 6 years, and as you can see, the production profile now is looking at around 700,000 ounces a year by year 5. That regional project would be funded out of cash flow from operations, so we're not looking at any additional capital to bring Hemi into production. So we've still got upside to that, and we're going to continue to look for near-surface open-pittable resources around Hemi that we can feed directly into that plant. I'll talk about underground in a minute, but we've also got an option on the Ashburton project with Kalamazoo, which is about a couple of hundred kilometres south of us. We're currently in the process of drilling holes for metallurgical test work. The resource there is around 1.4 million ounces, so the potential is from Ashburton, new discoveries and underground opportunities for that production profile to shift out to the right and go further up. Just in terms of underground opportunity, this long projection shows the Hemi deposits end to end, and that goes for about 6.5 kilometres. And the resource down to about 390 metres, which is where we pretty much have the depth of the open pits at the moment, has an endowment of around 25,000 ounces per vertical metre, and it's about 10.5 million ounces in terms of what you can see there. Now everyone knows that you don't get circa 10 million ounces along 6.5 kilometre strike and nothing happens underneath that. So we've been doing very wide space drilling underneath the open pits, particularly at Yukon and Eagle, but we've also done some at Aquila and Crow recently, which we recently announced. And our expectation going forward is that there will be an underground operation at Hemi. It's just a matter of when it would happen. And we're currently in the process of undertaking a conceptual underground mining study, and we aim to release the results of that in the next couple of weeks. Just in terms of exploration, in terms of what we're doing, the areas that we're focusing on at the moment are to the southwest of Hemi, down towards the ground that we've got in joint venture with Novo Resources at Hetmire and Besher. The reason that we went into that joint venture arrangement with Novo is that we can see the same structures and the same geology heading into that territory, and also to the northeast of Hemi, particularly along the Mount Berghaus shear. So we've had some interesting encouragement there at Antwerp and West Yule, 6 metres at 3.4, 20 at 1.2. So yeah, a lot of encouragement, and we'll continue air core and RC drilling and some diamond there over the next 6 to 12 months and see if we can pick up another near-surface Hemi-style intrusion. And just in terms of perseverance around these things, that cross-section on the left is what Yukon looked like when it was first discovered in air core. So, not a lot going on there, and I think probably 12 months later, that's what it looks like. So, we do have a lot of encouragement from, the sniffs that are coming out in terms of the geochemical anomalism around Hemi, and, Yukon's a fantastic example of why we'll keep doing that. Just in terms of, where to from here, our real focus is to get Hemi into production, and we see a lot of value in the company's share price. We see a lot of value in the company's NPV going forward, and we've done a lot of financial analysis on this in terms of what's in the best interests of the Grey shareholders, and the best interest for the Grey shareholders is for the Grey to bring Hemi into production, and for our shareholders to get that re-rating from where we are now in terms of getting multiples of EBITDA into the share price. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. In terms of capability, we're building that organisational capability to deliver this project, and in terms of risk, because of our location, because of all the infrastructure we've got there, and because of the payback period delivered by the Brolga open pit, we're confident that we'll be able to do it. Thank you.